Okay, let's drink some first. This is already so messy. Let us just start again. Hi and welcome to a new video here with me. I'm Kine Lovise for those of you who do not know me, and my oh my, it's been a long time since I last made a video like this. As you can see from today's title, we will be going through some books that I read in 2023. This video was originally meant to be on all of the books that I read in 2023, at least those worth mentioning, but I broke my own record and actually read 71 books in 2023, which is a lot to try and talk about in a short amount of time, as such a video is going to be. I have figured that because I have so many, like only the fantasy books, that fantasy books are what I will be presenting to you in this video. Instead of doing a separate video, I will make a blog post about the non-fiction books that I read in 2023. So we'll look into doing that instead. So today I will only be focusing on fantasy books. I love fantasy, and most of the fantasy books I've read I have a physical copy of, but there is definitely a lot that I don't, because 2023 was also the year that I really got into like reading audiobooks or listening to audiobooks. So some of the books I will only be showing like a picture of the book here because I don't have the physical copy, but let's get into the fantasy books I've read in 2023. Where shall we start? There is like a lot of books here you don't like even see. This is deep. There are more books than you can see. We can start with the one on top here. So this is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. It is a Hades and Persephone retelling, kind of in an urban setting. I guess you can say kind of like how the Greek gods kind of just live on top of and in their world, but in their separate world at the same time. I can just like read because I'm terrible at explaining what happens in a book, but yeah. Persephone is the goddess of spring in title only. Since she was a little girl, flowers have only shriveled at her touch. After moving to New Athens, she hoped to lead an unassuming life disguised as a mortal journalist. All of that changes when she sits down in a forbidden nightclub to play a hand of cards with a hypnotic and mysterious stranger. Guess who that is? Hades, god of the dead, has built a gambling empire in the mortal world, and his favorite bets are rumored to be impossible. But nothing has ever intrigued him as much as the goddess offering him a bargain he can't resist. After her encounter with Hades, Persephone finds herself in a contract with the god of the dead, and his terms are impossible. Persephone must create life in the underworld or lose her freedom forever. The bet does more than expose Persephone's failure as a goddess, however. As she struggles to sow the seeds of her freedom, love of the god of the dead grows. A love that is both captivating and forbidden. So this is the first book in a series. Yeah, so this is the first book in a series named Hades and Persephone. So it's at least 3 books. Scarlett St. Clair also do like have other books, but I have currently only read this one. I think I maybe listened to the first chapter of like the second book, which is called A Touch of Ruin. After now having gotten used to how Sarah J. Maas builds her worlds, it does feel kind of simple, but I really liked the series. Yeah, I did really like it. I will be reading the next book as well. I just haven't gotten around to it. If you're into like retellings, I do think it was a good one. It's not great, but it's like good. I think I gave it like, let's see, I have pulled up how many stars I gave each of the books. So I gave this book 4 stars, which, oh, I forgot that the lights did that at 1930. Skru opp lyset 40%. There you go. I think this is good. I gave the book a 4, which is simple but good rating for me. I do recommend. Next, we have A Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. Also kind of a simple world, like a small world, not a simple world, but a small world. As the title says, it is witchy, but intensely dark and beautifully sinister and beguiling. Born on the fringes of Bethel, Emmanuel does her best to obey the church and follow holy protocol. For it was in Bethel that the first prophet pursued and killed 4 powerful witches and so cleansed the land. And then a chance encounter lures her into the dark wood that surrounds Bethel. It is a forbidden place, haunted by the spirits of the witches who bestow an extraordinary gift on Emmanuel, the diary of her dead mother. Fascinated by and fearful of the secrets the diary reveals, Emmanuel begins to understand the truth about her own upbringing, the prophets and their history. For the real threat to Bethel is its own darkness. It must change, and that will begin with her. Again, this was one of the few books I actually read the physical book of this year, and I found it really hard to even put down. I liked her story. First of all, I love most things witches, and the case between the church and the witches, from old, being built on that premise. But it is old time, no cars, I think no electricity. It is these sinister bad things are happening in waves for the village, and everyone's blaming the witches. I like it. I don't know if the next book is out or if it is coming, but I know there was said to be more books coming in this series. When I got a hold of it, I will read that as well. For my rating, I gave this book also a 4. Next, we have I think there were very much hype around these books when they both came out. The Atlas Paradox, which is the second book in the Atlas 6 Atlas series, I believe came out this year or in 2023. No, first published in 2022. Yeah. I read both of these this year, so we can start by reading the little thing on the back of the first book, because I won't read on the back of the second book, of course, because that contains spoilers. Yeah, 6 extraordinary magicians, 5 chances to win, and 1 secret society. Once a decade, the world's best magicians are invited to join the elite Alexandrian society. Its members enjoy a lifetime of power and access to ancient secrets. But only 5 places are offered, so after recruitment by the mysterious Atlas Blakely, the candidates must complete a rigorous year of arcane study. Libby Rhodes and Nico de Verona are inseparable enemies and cosmologists who can control matter with their minds. Parisha Kamali is a telepath, Raina Mori understands the flow of life itself, and Callum Nova can manipulate desires. Finally, there's Tristan Kane, whose powers mystify even himself. The rivals must survive their trials, and if they can prove themselves, they will. Most of them. So this is definitely a dark academia kind of a book, with them living in this big library called the Alexandrian Society. This, I think, was the first book I wrote a review of, so I'll give you that. So I really like this POV style. It is a multiple POV, so you get the story from everyone's point of view. That combined with all of the information, theories and layers that made up this book made the book stand out for me. It also made it kind of predictable, making it easy to put their respective knowledge together, but at the same time, I have a feeling it made a good foundation for the next book and what is to come. I am, though, kind of surprised at not really feeling invested in the individual characters that much, but more so like actually being invested in the plot of the book, which is a very much a new feeling for me. So I was really interested to see where it went from here. I definitely was torn between giving it a 5 and a 4, but I ended up giving it a 4. I really do recommend. The second book though was, I don't believe, as good. Kind of like left out some pieces for me. I will definitely be reading the next one when that comes out, because that is not out yet as far as I know. But yeah, that was The Atlas 6 and The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. The Atlas Paradox I gave a 3, but I'm really hoping they get like back up there for the third book. Next again, I have The Bone Witch by Rin Chipero. Again with the witchy stuff, but this is definitely not a urban fantasy. This is high fantasy, building an entire new world. This book uses very different kind of storytelling device. Like there is this person that comes to this girl on an island or something and asks her to tell her story because she's heard about it, but he wants it from the source. So you go back and forth between him actually talking to her, like being where she is, and then again back to the story she's telling. And then when she's telling the story, it is told as if that's happening right now. It felt kind of weird in the start just because I wasn't prepared for that to be the case. But as soon as I got into it, I really liked that. And especially the physical book, it is very obvious when you're like in her telling it the story, or when you're like at the time that is happening right now. Yeah, well, I'll say what's behind here first. So the beast raged. It punctured the air with its bite, but the girl was fiercer. T is different from the other witches in her family. Her gift for necromancy makes her a bone witch, who are feared and ostracized in the kingdom. For theirs is a powerful elemental magic that can reach beyond the boundaries of the living and of the human. Great power comes at a price, forcing T to leave her homeland to train under the guidance of an older, wiser bone witch. There, T puts all her energy into becoming an Asha, learning to control her elemental magic and those beasts who will submit to no other force. And T must be strong, stronger than she even believes possible, because war is brewing in the Eight Kingdoms. War that will threaten the sovereignty of her homeland and threaten the very survival of those she loves. Lyrical and action-packed, this start of a new fantasy series by acclaimed author Rin Chipero will leave you breathless. So this is then the first book of the series. The series is just called The Bone Witch. I have read both this, which is the first book, and then The Heart Forger, which is the second book. And I loved them equally. So both of them got a 4. I did listen to them on audiobook, so I do not have the second book of the series, but yeah, I do recommend. Next up, we have Serpent and Dove by Shelley Mahurin, yeah, which is yet another witchy book. There is not a lot. Bound as one to love, honor, or burn, a witch and the witch hunter thrust into holy matrimony. There was only one way such a story could end: a stake and a match. Again, I really like this book. I have had this on my bookshelves for like so long and just never gotten around to reading it. Again, I did listen to this book on audiobook, like Audible. I really like this book. It took me no time to get through this book, which is kind of amazing since it is like really big. It was so difficult to put down, and I find that it's like even worse putting a book down on audiobook because the next chapter just starts. But if you're like reading a physical book, when the chapter ends, it feels more final, so that it's easier to put it down. This is about Jean-Luc and Lou. And Jean-Luc is a Jazor, which again is working for the church. Luc is a witch. the church is there to burn them all. Circumstances make them having to marry. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. It is a, you just know they're like so angry with each other, and they like just walk into each other and like, oh no, and you just know they hate each other from first look. Like they have to get together. I definitely do recommend this book. The second book in this series is also on my list. I do think there are 3. It's Blood and Honey, which is the next one, and I don't remember the name of the third one, but I'm pretty sure it's 3. Another first book in a series. Then you have A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. So there you go. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I don't know if you would call this high fantasy or urban fantasy, because it kind of starts out, you have like DC in the States, but you have like multiple worlds living on top of each other like all of the time. So you have this high fantasy world living on top of that. So this is about Prince Ren and Harper. This book also contains like living with disability, which I think is great. So it says, Prince Ren, the heir to Emberfall, is cursed. Forced to repeat the autumn of his 18th year over and over, he can only be freed if a girl truly falls for him. And after so many failures, his kingdom and its people are barely holding on. Harper's life has never been easy, but she's learned to be tough enough to survive the streets of Washington, D.C. When she is sucked into Ren's world, nothing is as it seems. Powerful forces are standing against Emberfall and will take more than a broken curse to save it from utter ruin. I do recommend this book. Again, it is simple but lovely. It is a multiple POV, so it's both from Ren's point of view and from Harper's point of view, so you do have like more information than you have with a single point of view kind of book. Another one I do recommend. I haven't like read a lot of bad books this year. That book I also gave a 4. A book I wasn't very impressed by, I kind of think, just because it has gotten so much hype, is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Is the story of Achilles and Patroclus. It is the Greek gods kind of thing, which is kind of the build-up of Patroclus and Achilles, the story of how they ended up at the Battle of Troy. I talked to another friend of mine who also read that book this year, and we're both like there's nothing wrong with the book necessarily, and of course the story is the story, but for it to be like a classic, and so I kind of expected more. I did cry a couple of times, but yeah, no, I only gave the book a 3. I struggled to finish the book. I didn't like feel compelled to pick it up again. It is a book worth reading, it is, especially if you're like into Greek mythology and like the old stories of Greece. Other than that, I don't know. It wasn't for me. I know a lot of people like really love this book. It just wasn't for me. Then on to, we have, oh, this book is so heavy. We have the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I did not read the first book in this series this year, but I did read the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th this year. I did love this series. Kind of. I'm at a weird point because I really loved some parts and I was really not loving other parts. Every book had me like really hooked. I will be reading more of them as soon as I get around to it. So, From Blood and Ash is a series about a maiden chosen from birth to usher in a new era. Poppy's life has never been her own. The life of the maiden is solitary, never to be touched, never to be looked upon, never to be spoken to, never to experience pleasure, and waiting for the day of her ascension. She would rather be with the guards fighting back the evil that took her family. than preparing to be found worthy by the gods. But the choice has never been hers. A duty. The entire kingdom's future rests on Poppy's shoulders. Something she's not even quite sure she wants for herself. Because a maiden has a heart, and a soul, and longing. And when Hawk, a golden-eyed guard, honor-bound to ensure her ascension, enters her life, destiny and duty become tangled with desire and need. He incites her anger, makes her question everything she believes in, and tempts her with the forbidden. A kingdom, forsaken by the gods and feared by mortals, a fallen kingdom is rising once more, determined to take back what they believe is theirs through violence and vengeance. And as the shadow of those cursed draws closer, the line between what is forbidden and what is right becomes blurred. Poppy is not only on the verge of losing her heart and being found unworthy by the gods, but also her life, when every blood-soaked thread that holds her world together begins to unravel. This is... you get trapped in the story. It is simpler, or the world is simpler than I kind of thought it would be. I don't know what I expected though. I might have expected a lot. I did read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which is the second one, which I gave 5 stars. Then The Crown of Gilded Bones, the third book, which I also gave 5 stars. Love those books. And then I read the 4th book, which is The War of Two Queens, which I only gave 4 stars. Just because it was kind of repetitive, kind of anticlimactic, like the ending. It is not the end, so I will definitely be reading the next books in this series. Do recommend. This is not YA. This is new adult. This is high fantasy. It has really explicit scenes. I don't think it's like as bad as some people suggest that it is, but it's definitely explicit. So, but it's good. And then we're on to my three favorite book series, which of course is Sarah J Maas. I have read all of these books before, but when mental health is not very good, you want your comfort reads. First off, it is my favorite series of all time. It's high fantasy. I would say it is young adult, older young adult, but loved by adults everywhere. This is the Throne of Glass series. I know it's upside down just because the first book is here. This is Throne of Glass. They do have new covers since I bought this. I think I bought these books like 3 or 4 years ago, and I have read them so many times after that. It is about Selena Sardothian, an assassin. Wow. It's like, I just, like, this book series is my heart. I have read this series 3 times this year. Only in 2023 I've read this series 3 times, and none of them were the first time I read this series. I do find it kind of hard trying to explain how good this series is without giving spoilers, because there is a lot of people that I really love in the series that you do not meet until like the 3rd, 4th book, depending on how you read them. There is this prequel book, which is The Assassin's Blade. The first time I read this book next to Lost, which I do not recommend. Do not do that. That is definitely the wrong way to do that. Yeah, there is a lot of ways you can read this series. You can look them up, or you can ask me if you have questions about it. But Throne of Glass, it is about Selena Sardothian. So meet Selena Sardothian. Beautiful, deadly, destined for greatness, of course. In the dark, filthy salt mines of Endovier, an 18-year-old girl is serving a life sentence. She is a trained assassin, the best of her kind, but she made a fatal mistake. She got caught. Young Captain Westfall offers her a deal, her freedom in return for one huge sacrifice. Selena must represent the prince in a to-the-death tournament, fighting the most gifted thieves and assassins in the land. Live or die, Selena will be free. Win or lose, she is about to discover her true destiny. But will her assassin's heart be melted? Like, this series is my heart. I can of course also read like the back of the prequel, because you could start with either one of them, and all of the information in this is kind of spoiled in this one as well. So, a twist of a knife, the birth of a legend. Selena Sardothian owes her reputation to Arobin Hummel, difficult name. He gave her a home at the Assassin's Guild and taught her the skills she needed to survive. Arobin's enemies stretch far and wide, from Alderland's rooftops and its filthy dens to remote islands and hostile deserts. Selena is duty-bound to hunt them down, but behind her assignment lies a dark truth that will seal her fate and cut her heart into two forever. I, as I've said, love this series. It is a long one. So there are 8 books? Yeah, 8 books. So you got them all here. I'll turn them the other way around. Okay, there you go with all of the books. I love them with all my heart. The last book is definitely like my favorite. I do also love especially The Heir of Fire. I love this series. I wouldn't have read them 3 times just this year if I didn't though, so you probably believe me. I also have like a tattoo which is from the last book, You Do Not Yield. I did also read both the Avatar series. So first off, the Avatar series. That is about Feyre and her encounter with the fairy world. So this too is high fantasy. There are no explicit scenes in the first book, but it definitely arrives in the second one. So this is also by Sarah J. Maas, and it says here that Feyre is a huntress. The skin of a wolf would bring enough gold to feed her sisters for a month. But the life of a magical creature comes at a steep price, and Feyre has just killed the wrong wolf. Taken prisoner by a high Fey lord, Feyre learns that her masked captor is hiding even more than his piercing gaze suggests. But as Feyre's feelings for Tamlin begins to burn through every warning she's heard about his kind, a shadow is falling across the land, and if Feyre cannot fight it, she will lose everything. Feyre is illiterate. She is a huntress. She has 2 sisters and her father, which are alive. Feyre, which is the youngest of the sisters, have to go out in the forest and hunt so they have something to eat and something to sell. Story of how she survived and how the abilities that she learned from making her and her family survive helped her in the fairylands. And then there is the final popular series of Sarah J. Maas, which is the Crescent City books. This is the first book, The House of Earth and Blood. But there are currently 2 books out. The next book comes out, I believe it's the 30th of January, at least here in Norway. This is a multiverse, we're told, and I can't wait. There are some parallels, and I'm really looking forward to it. I did read this again this year. I did read it last year as well. This is her latest series. So this is about Bryce Quinlan, bound by blood, tempted by desire, and unleashed by destiny. Bryce Quinlan used to light up Crescent City, partying all night in the clubs where the strict classes of angel, shifter, human, and fae merged into a sea of beautiful bodies. And then a demon murdered her closest friends. 2 years later, when the supposed killer is behind bars but the crimes start up again, the city's leaders command Bryce to investigate. They assign an enslaved fallen angel, Hunt Athalar, to make sure she does. But Bryce fights to uncover the truth and resists her attraction to the brooding angel who shadows her every step. She finds herself following a trail that leads deep into her own dark pasts. This book is also high fantasy, but it is at the same time more modern. They do have electricity, although it comes from something else than it does in our world. They have guns and all of these newer weapons. A very much more developed world, and it's a city, a proper city. I did also read most of the second book again this year, but halfway through I think I was like, no, wait, I want to wait to finish this book until like January, which is now, because of like the next book coming out in just a couple of weeks. I did get an email from one of the bookstores asking if I want to like pre-buy it. I think I want to do that because I need that like book ASAP. Last but not least, of course, I did read Fourth Wing, which is the first book in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros. I do not have the physical book of that book. I have like written down the what's on the backside of that book as well. So it is about 20-year-old Violet Sorangale, who was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history. Now, the commanding general, also known as her tough-ass Talon's mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, dragon riders. But when you're smaller than everyone else and your body is brittle, death is only a heartbeat away, because dragons don't bond to fragile humans. They incinerate them. With fewer dragons willing to bond than cadets, most would kill Violet to better their own chances of success. The rest would kill her just for being her mother's daughter, like Satan Ryerson, the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant. She'll need every edge her wits can give her just to see the next sunrise. Yet with every day that passes, the war outside grows more deadly. The kingdom's protective wards are failing, and the death toll continues to rise. Even worse, Violet begins to suspect leadership is hiding a terrible secret. Friends, enemies, lovers, everyone at Biscayeth War College has an agenda. Because once you enter, there are only two ways out: graduate or die. That book I did give a 5. I love that book. I have also read that book twice this year. Once this summer and then once again right before the next book came out. I have also started the last book, or like the second book in the series. I think I have like 2 hours left because I do listen to them on Audible. And I know that like the 2 last hours, when I start that, I won't be able to put it down, and still not quite done with that, but we're getting there. Those were the fantasy books that I read this year. Did you read any of these books? Please let me know. I really want to talk books, so if you want to talk about any of these books, just let me know. Also, do watch out for the blog post coming on the non-fiction books that I recommend after having read them this last year. That will be on my blog, which is linked below, but it is kinelovise.com if you haven't been there yet. Sorry, I suddenly was out of storage on my phone because as I think I started saying, I've been filming for over an hour. Yeah, I also filmed this entire thing on my phone on like the face pointing camera. What do you think? Is it okay? I do believe the sound is very much better on my phone than it is on my cameras, so that is the reason. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. It really does help me. And if you want to be up to date on things I post here, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, or you can also enter my newsletter at my blog kinelovise.com to always get an email every time I post a new blog post there. That also includes, like, I will always post the YouTube videos that I post here. I will as well post on the blog. All of my other socials, which I am like kind of active on, is linked below. There you will also find my Goodreads if you want to stay up to date on what I read or have read on a daily basis, so you can add you as a friend if you like add me there, so please do. But that was all I had for now. Thank you for watching this entire video. So thank you if you've watched the entire video until this point. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.